I don't know what I'm doing. This poor thing may be a guinea pig that doesn't really, you know, doesn't really make it. So in the previous videos, I'll try to, up there, we did a compression test and a leak down test. Not an official leak down test, but let's look for problems. Ooh, we found them kind of leak down test. So we had to figure out what to do. Well, go to the internet, look for parts. So I was able to grab a set of 461 heads. Double hump, earlier generation 64cc heads. Casting 3782461. Now, I don't remember the year. They are early pre-accessory holes. This is another thing the internet gets mad about. This I did not do, but it was already done. The internet screams and yells that if you put a hole in these heads and try to like drill into them, you are certain to hit a water jacket. I don't know if that's true, but we're gonna find out, internet. This was a really good deal. I paid 400 bucks for the set of heads, which was way cheaper than anyone I called around to build a set of heads. And I got this Edelbrock Performer intake along with it. So, a set of heads and an intake, 400 bucks, fresh from the machine shop, sitting on the shelf. Now, I talked to the guys for a while. They said, yeah, they built them, or had them built, picked them up, been on the shelf forever. They got too much junk. They were cleaning stuff out, gave me a deal on it. I'm gonna take their word for it. You know what I mean? Like, they look brand spanking new. Now, these are the, oh, come on, memory. I think these are the 194 valves, so it's smaller than the 202s that everybody wants. Truck motor, guys. We're replacing a tired inline six. I think this is going to be an improvement. The other thing I did was basic guesstimating. These are dished pistons. I'm having to assume 12cc because that I got off the internet. I don't know what else is standard. I tried to do some compression math based on using Summit's calculator based on what I know about this with some general assumptions about deck height and all this stuff, because I don't really have all the measuring tools for it, but I guessed at it. And these heads, in theory, with these pistons, with the relief and the dish, if I can use all of it the way that it is, I should be in the mid to upper nines compression wise. That's a ballpark, which means I'm raising the compression of this effectively, significantly, while still maintaining pump gas. However, the fellas, you know, that sold me those heads introduced me to a concept I knew nothing about. So don't get me wrong, the internet and YouTube owe me nothing. But I went to my go-to places. Part of what inspired this, because, you know, everybody likes vice grip. The vice grip DIY builds, like cheap, small block builds, made me think, well, maybe I can do that, right? Like, maybe it's worth a shot. Bearings, rings, dingle ball hone. Sure, I can do it, I think. But there's something that's not mentioned in those videos, especially the 307 build that he does. And that is something I didn't know about. Ring ridge. Let's see if we can see it. Right there. Apparently that's the common metric for a ring ridge. Can you catch your fingernail on it? Well, sure. What does that mean, right? Like, some people think it's so bad that you've got to take a reamer before you get your pistons out, just so the piston ring will clear it. I don't know if that's true or not, but we're gonna find out. Some people, let me just break this down, because I've been doing countless hours of research on this, and let me talk about all the contradictions. All right, gang, go ahead and crack another beer, because I'm gonna try to explain what I think I know, because this subject is avoided, or danced around is probably more the right thing. So ring ridge, right? It's the very top of your cylinder. At the end of the stroke, the ring, the top compression ring, stops at a certain point in the bore. That's it. Everything above that to the deck can potentially create a small ridge that is unworn cylinder wall, plus it's probably coated with carbon, thus making it seem thicker. All right, I would expect most 50-year-old engines have that. So how big of a deal is it? So what's the metric for measuring? Apparently, it's a fingernail. What is a fingernail unit? Uncle Tony reluctantly throws out a number, 5 thousandths. Then it's got to be machined. It's in one of his rebuilding series. You know, he also does go through a method for measuring cylinder bore, which we may really just steal and use and get into. So now we know what it is, we know why it is. Fingernails apparently are measurement, sure, whatever. Then the question is, what is it, or how big of a deal is it? Now the consensus is, if it's bad enough and you just re-ring the engine, the top compression ring with a new squared off fresh ring edge is not worn to meet the bottom edge of your groove like your current ring is, and therefore potentially could crack when the unworn brand new edge of your piston ring hits the edge of your ring ridge, thus breaking your brand new ring. So what are our options here? What do you do about it? Well, half the internet says get a ridge reamer. The other half of the internet, Uncle Tony included, says never use a ridge reamer. Now, if you YouTube some videos on how to use a ridge reamer, you will find a lot more videos of someone trying to use one and explain the how to use a ridge reamer and marring their cylinder wall very badly. The idea is it's supposed to just ride on the bore and then cut the ridge off so that you have, you know, no more ring ridge, which makes sense, I guess, if you're trying to get rid of it for sure. But you know, my other thought was, well, how can you get a reamer to ride the cylinder walls if the cylinder walls are indeed tapered to any degree based on, you know, 1 billion miles? Then you get some fellers that say, well, you know, just take it down the best you can with emery cloth and a razor blade and then give her a hone and that'll smooth the edge out just enough, or at least I'm interpreting the last part. Nobody has said those words exactly, actually. But, you know, I did meet a fine fellow over the weekend and I bought some Impala steering columns from him, and he suggested just use a 3-stone hone and just ride it in around the top, real nice like. I thought that sounds like it'll work or screw everything up. So I don't know. So what's the big deal? Well, there's a couple of you fellas watching this channel and this, you know, particular episode right now that you guys know exactly what the big deal is. The only way to be sure, the only way to be safe is to take this to the machine shop, get it bored, and move on. That means the block would get checked, it would get totally cleaned out. That is the right thing to do. I get it. That's fine. I get that that's the right thing to do, and it's the only way to be sure. And do you want to invest a bunch of stuff and money in internals and find you still have a problem with the block? Well, the answer is no, I don't really. But at the same time, I've run a ton of stock blocks I've never even looked into. Unknown mileage, unknown whatever. If it's running okay, I just let it run. This one, you know, it shows evidence of being hurt. So my question is, what I want to do is do in my garage, re-ring, new main bearings, that type of thing, maybe a camshaft if we're feeling froggy, and move on with our lives. Now, I get it. That's potentially super Pollyanna, but the idea would be, I mean, I have 3 other motors around here that I have not even done a compression test on that I'm planning on running as is. And the machine shop work I expect to be $250, $300. Then I need to throw like, I don't know, $100 to a set of pistons or whatever like that. So it's another $400. It's the right thing to do. Is it cheap insurance? Probably. But I think I'm kind of willing to guinea pig this out. And really, I want to try to do it all here, all in the garage, and see if I can learn a method. Here's the thing, like the internet can be very confusing. Someone can write a very compelling, thoughtful forum article on, I've done this before, it will be fine, here's what to check, here's what to look out for, don't worry about the ring ridge, it's not that big a deal. And then someone after that will come in screaming that if you do that, it will kill the engine that you put in your car and will kill the engine in the car that's parked next to it. And you know, there's a lot of opinions out there for good reason, and it's hard to sort through them. And that's essentially, I gotta just guinea pig it with my best logic. There is indeed a bit of a ring, and my goal here is to treat it at home the best I can without taking the block in. If I can't, then we're gonna discuss further. But the plan going forward is to try to work on this thing without taking it to the machine shop. All right, so here's the plan. I'm gonna put this also out probably before I really start the plan, but we'll see. Sometimes I get a wild hair and just get ahead of myself. What I wanna do is knock the pistons out. First test, if the pistons come out, maybe the ridge is not as bad as we think, because apparently the ridge reamer was invented to take the ridge out so you could even get the pistons out, because ridges can get that bad. Part 2 is just do another visual inspection of the block. Part 3 is, you know, for the ring ridge thing itself, is to use emery cloth to clean the carbon off, maybe a little razor blade, and see where that gets us. And then finally, maybe just try to give it a quick hone and see what that does to the ring ridge, because if I give it a quick hone, it can still go to the machine shop. Like, that's not a big deal. And just see what that does to the edge of the actual ring itself, the ring ridge itself. And if it, you know, smooths itself out enough, then, you know, maybe we're good to go. But even the reaming is up for some serious debate, because Uncle Tony says never use a dingle ball hone, use a 3-stone hone, and you can find the flat spots, and then use a piston ring to measure your bores, which I'm going to try. But Derek at Vice Grip uses a dingle ball hone specifically to avoid changing the shape of the cylinder walls when reusing stock pistons. Now, these are two very different, conflicting ideas, and I understand them both. You know, basically, as far as I can assess, Uncle Tony's saying, use the 3-stone hone, that will round out your cylinder a little bit. You'll be able to see any extra worn spots, and if it's not bad, your ring will kind of do the rest of the work. Derek seems to suggest something different, and maybe I'm misinterpreting this, and by all means, let me know. The suggestion is that the piston and the cylinder wall have sort of worn themselves down in similar fashions, and keeping the right piston in the right bore, it seems relevant to just use a dingle ball hone to keep those shapes kind of grooving together. I don't know. So I'm not just trying to cheap out and cut corners. I'm trying to, if I take this to the machine shop, well, I know that the machine shop will work, I think, right? But what I'm doing is battling the unknown here. Like, can I make a good runner out of this without taking it to the machine shop, without, you know, increasing the piston size for an overbore and all that other stuff? There's nothing wrong with doing that, but can you actually do a freshen up on a motor that's got a bit of a ring ridge? That's what I want to find out, because I feel like I got 1,000 motors that, not 1,000, but 3 that could potentially have this exact problem. And if I can learn how to do it and it's functional and it gives me a good, reliable street motor, that's literally all I'm ever after. I know, if you think this is cutting corners, I'm never going to convince you that it's not, because I can see it through your eyes. Like, I can get it. I can get how this is, I'm going to put a lot of work into this, and I may have skipped a critical starting point. But that's kind of the point of this experiment here, is can we just garage build something in this condition? Because I expect this is not rusty pitted cylinders, but it's also not perfect with cross hatching. So, you know, I find I find this to be probably the very common gray area that a lot of people run into and don't know how to make the decision. So I think I'm willing to put the money and the time into this just to find out. I appreciate everybody following along and watching, and I guess we'll see you next time. I guess next time we're on this motor, I'll be trying to knock the pistons out, which is kind of interesting because I've never done that before. Anyway, all this is interesting because I've never done it before. And, you know, keep your eyes out for, more Model T videos and more Roadster videos because they're all coming. And yeah, thanks so much for watching so far. If you're interested in any of these projects, please consider subscribing. They are all moving along. Yeah, thanks for watching Between the Sharks. Good luck on your projects out there. We'll see you next time.